Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're jumping into a technology that has absolutely changed the game for building and shipping software, Docker. So let's get right into it and see how it solves one of the oldest, most frustrating problems in the entire tech world.
Ah, yes. If you've ever worked in software or even near it, you know this phrase. It's the stuff of nightmares, right? It's that moment when a developer shows you something working perfectly on their screen, but the second you try it, it just completely falls apart. This one sentence, it sums up a whole universe of pain that used to be just a normal part of the job.
So what was actually causing all this chaos? Before tools like Docker came along, just getting an application to run consistently across different computers was a huge headache. Let's pull back the curtain and meet the usual suspects. And the thing is, these problems all pile on top of each other. You've got dependency hell, which is exactly what it sounds like, where my version of a software library clashes with your version. Then there are the obvious OS differences. Code that works great on a Mac might just totally break on Windows. And of course, you have team inconsistency, where every single person's computer is set up just a little bit differently. Throw in a random software upgrade and boom, everything's broken. It was a complete recipe for chaos.
But, out of all that mess came this just incredibly elegant solution. Enter Docker. It brought in a simple but really powerful idea that was borrowed directly from the real world, the standard shipping container.
Okay, so officially, the textbook definition is that Docker is an open platform for developing and shipping applications. But that really doesn't even begin to capture its true power. It's not just another tool, it's a completely different way of thinking about how software gets made. Okay, this right here is the absolute game changer. The big idea is to completely separate your application. That's your code, its libraries, all its settings, from the actual infrastructure, from the machine it's running on. Just think about a real shipping container for a second. That box full of goods doesn't care if it's on a ship, a train, or a truck. Docker does the exact same thing, but for your code. So how does Docker actually pull this off? What's the magic here? Well, it all comes down to how it packages up applications, which is fundamentally different and way more efficient than the technology that came before it.
And this difference is everything. See, before Docker, we used things called virtual machines, or VMs. Think of VMs as heavyweight. For every single app, you had to package a full, separate copy of an entire operating system. It was slow and used up a ton of resources. Docker containers, on the other hand, are incredibly lightweight. They all cleverly share the main operating system's core, its kernel. And what does that mean? It means they start up almost instantly and use a tiny fraction of the computer's resources.
Now, to really get containers, we got to talk about images first. A Docker image is the blueprint. It's a static, read-only file that has everything, and I mean everything, the application needs to run. The code, the runtime, the tools, the libraries, it's all in there. It's the perfect recipe.
So, if the image is the blueprint, the container is the actual house built from it. A container is a live running instance of that image. It's your application, all packaged up and humming along, totally isolated from everything else. And the cool part is, you can spin up tons of identical containers from that one single image.
Okay, enough theory. What does this actually look like for a developer day-to-day? How do you go from a few lines of code on your machine to a live running container?
It's actually a surprisingly simple four-step dance. First, you write a Docker file, which is just a plain text file with instructions, kind of like a recipe card. You'll also list your specific ingredients in a file, like requirements.txt. Then, you run a command, docker build. That assembles your blueprint, your image. And finally, you run docker run. And poof, your application springs to life inside a brand new container.
And developers manage all of this with a few super simple commands. Want to see what's currently running? You just type docker ps. Need to see all the blueprints you've built? That's Docker images. And then you have simple commands like docker stop and docker rm to manage all your containers. It's a really clean and powerful workflow.
All right, so when you add all of this up, what are the real tangible benefits? Why did this technology just completely take over the world of software? Well, it really boils down to 4 huge wins.
First and foremost, portability. Because a Docker container has everything it needs packed inside, it's like your app is in a little travel case. You can pick it up and run it literally anywhere. Your laptop, a testing server, deep in the cloud, and it just works.
Number 2, consistency. And this is the silver bullet for that whole "it works on my machine" nightmare. Since the environment is packaged with the code, the application behaves the exact same way everywhere. No more surprises. Every single time. Third, you get isolation. Each container lives in its own little world, its own bubble. This means different apps can't interfere with each other. No more of that dependency hell we talked about earlier. And finally, number 4, a massive boost in efficiency across the board. Developers waste way less time debugging environment issues, servers can run more apps using fewer resources, and getting new features out the door becomes dramatically faster. It's a total win-win-win. So, if you're going to remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Docker separates your application from the infrastructure it runs on. It packages everything up into a single universal unit, and in doing so, it solves that "it works on my machine" problem once and for all. And that leaves us with one final, pretty exciting thought. By taking away one of the biggest and most annoying hurdles in software development, Docker lets creators focus on what actually matters, building amazing things. So the real question is, what could you create if the environment was never a problem again?